All right, all right, all right. Let's get fired up here. Hello and welcome to the Actual Anarchy podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies from a Rothbardian and anarcho-capitalist perspective. And tonight we're going to go way back over 30 years to kick off the comic book era in film adaptations in a series, or in the film that actually spawned a series that almost killed off the very movement it had started. It's going to be a good one. We're talking about Batman, and we're going to have our friend Shaheen on for this. He will be introduced on the last hours portion of the show. This is episode 169 of the show, and I know, we should probably done another Adam Sandler film just because of the 69 joke there, but this is 169, so maybe that's why we can keep it on the level, keep this work safe for work or whatever. Speaking of work, Robert is back at it. My co-host, Robert, how are you, sir?
Oh, hey, buddy. How's it going?
It's going mighty fine. Now, you had a couple of weeks off, and now you have started again. Is business going well? And last time you also mentioned you might be looking at some physical space.
Yeah, we're looking at space-time, which has been theorized by Nobel Prize-winning physicists, which seems to be holding true so far. There are spaces and times available to be purchased from dirty, greedy capitalists that want money in exchange for their space-time. We went and saw a place today that might work out. We're in negotiations currently. We have some discussions to do, see if it'll work for our business interests. Hopefully it'll work out, though. It might be a decent space. We could make some good coinage there, some dirty money.
Well, it is nice that you are not only exploiting yourself, but also potentially other people in pursuit of profit and naked greed, which is sort of talked about in the Batman movie here, Batman 89 and Batman Returns, which we will also touch on with our guest in the Last Nighters portion of the show. This is episode 169. Check it out at actualanarchy.com/169, and we'll kick off Last Nighters right after this. Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Johnson, the Last Nighters, and Last Nighters can be found on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. Check it out at thelaunchpadmedia.com. This is episode 112 of the show. We're talking about Batman 1989 and maybe a little bit of Batman Returns in here with our friend from Adelaide, Australia, Shaheen. We'll introduce him in just a second, but it's hard to believe it's been over 30 years since this film kind of reignited the comic book genre, and it should be a fun discussion tonight. Ways you can support the show: you can share this around with your friends, YouTube video, subscribe to us, give us some likes, some shares, all that stuff. You can also challenge us, give us some questions on our old Facebook page, or anything you got. We also have a Patreon, which you can access at lastnighters.com/Patreon and get bonus content in exchange for Federal Reserve notes, fiat currency. We still accept that, at least for the time being. Of course, you can send us physical gold if you've got it and you're willing to part with it. And I don't know, Robert, are you accepting Bitcoin? I am not at this point.
You just reject it out of hand. You wouldn't take it if someone, some dirty bum handed it to you on the street. You'd be like, no, gracias.
I wouldn't know what to do with it because I don't have a wallet or anything like that. So perhaps I'm just showing my old curmudgeon ways. I'm a grumpy old man. So I don't know how to actually accept it or utilize it in any fashion. So yeah, I would probably have to turn it down in exchange for, or in preference to, the fiat, which I do know how to use and spend liberally, so to speak.
Disgusting Luddite. You disgust me. You still ride on a horse and buggy to work?
I do.
Smoke signals to, is that what we're doing? This is one of the smoke signal podcasts.
Well, I am sending a signal. There's a bat signal behind me, and that can mean only one thing. Is that Shaheen's music? It is. It's our Shaheen. all the way from Adelaide. He has been on the show many times in the past, talking about Batman, talking about Superman, all things DCEU. And we do appreciate you coming back on. Shaheen, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and remind them where they can find what you do, and then we will kick off the discussion of Batman 89.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm Shaheen, and I come along for all the Batman episodes. That's kind of my niche. And yeah, you can just find me on Twitter. I mean, it'll be in the show notes page, I trust.
That is correct, sir. This will be in the show notes page, and that can be found at lastnighters.com/112 or 112, as this is the 112th show of the Last Nighters. Also found on the Launchpad Media, also found on Patreon at lastnighters.com/Patreon, where you can get, the bonus content in exchange for those fiat dollars we were talking about earlier, or, gold dust, gold bits, but not Bitcoins. Yeah. So I think I've confused everybody now. And so why don't we go to Google and figure out how to get around the confusion here. All right. So this is the Google description. How we start off the show. Batman came out in 1989. Crime and action film, 2 hours and 6 minutes, 7.5 IMDb, 72% Rotten Tomatoes, 2 out of 4 from Roger Ebert. 91% of Google users like it. This is directed by Tim Burton, of course. Description reads, having witnessed his parents' brutal murder as a child, millionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne, played by Michael Keaton, fights crime in Gotham City disguised as Batman, a costume hero who strikes fear into the hearts of villains. But when a deformed madman who calls himself the Joker, played by Jack Nicholson, seizes control of Gotham's criminal underworld, Batman must face his most ruthless nemesis ever while protecting both his identity and his love interest, reporter Vicky Vale, played by the lovely Kim Basinger. And this came out in June 23rd, 1989, director Tim Burton. The featured song is the Batman theme by Danny Elfman, and also features songs by Prince, awkwardly placed throughout the film. Box office of $411.5 million on a budget of $35 million, and probably on about 411.5 million Happy Meals. Robert, your take on this commercial success with all of the product tie-ins, and then we'll go to Shaheen.
Well, this is one of the big movies of my childhood. I remember being I was like 13 years old when this came out. And it was kind of a big deal, me being a big comic book nerd. Jack Nicholson's performance, to actually get an actor of the level of quality of Jack Nicholson. I mean, he only did the movie with a bunch of guaranteed money and then a bunch of back end money. So he got like a percentage deal. So he ended up getting over $25 million for this film.
And top billing was a requirement as well.
Right. So, I mean, Keaton, to that point, he had done like Mr. Mom. He'd done I don't know about Multiplicity, but he'd done some lower level stuff. He was perfectly an established actor, but he wasn't quite to the level of a Nicholson, who had done so many great things in the 70s. But you definitely see, and this is also kind of, I guess, the breakout for Tim Burton. I don't remember a whole lot of stuff he did before this, if anything. He was a young, film student-y guy. Yeah, I guess off the back of Beetlejuice, I suppose. It kind of bankrolled him into Batman. I don't know how you get Batman from Beetlejuice, but I guess if anybody could make a comic book movie, they're like, whatever, we don't know how to do it. Give it to this guy. But you definitely see Cesar Romero in Nicholson. His performance is almost like exactly what you would expect it to be. So it's not really surprising you, but he does a solid performance. Like if you take the influence of Cesar Romero, you give it to Jack Nicholson, because that's all there really was before that, right? It was just Cesar Romero and then the comic books. And then you have, the director, what's his name? Why did I just forget his name? Burton's directing. And yeah, you get exactly what you would expect with this film. It has that kind of dreamlike quality, like they're all these manufactured sets, right? That's how he did them. Kind of like it feels like a Terry Gilliam film. Has this kind of like otherworldly, dreamlike quality where it's like not quite real, but sort of real. It's at the time it was great. At the time, it was all we had, and it was like this breakout thing that everybody went and saw. Like even normal people like went and saw this film. But since then we've had so much better, so much improved things, improved performances, that I think this movie's starting to lose a little bit of its luster. It's still decent, but I don't know. It just doesn't quite hold up to scrutiny after so much better stuff has come out. Maybe if we hadn't had, the renaissance of comic book stuff that we've had lately, I'd have a better view of it. But it's kind of quaint and quirky, and it has its own vibe to it. But I don't think that anybody would seriously do it today.
Okay. All right. That's a strong opening statement. I think that we're going to have some contention on this one with Shaheen, who is our DCEU guy. My take on your aesthetic interpretation of it looking like a Gilliam film or like a Dark City, I think you're right. I see a lot of Brazil in this. There were a lot of actual sets that were created, but then there's also a lot of like green screen effects to make this kind of dystopian nightmare background. And then also the gadgetry and the all the little models, you can actually tell they're models, which is kind of quaint in a way looking back on it now. I mean, back in the day when this came out, yeah, you're right. It was like cutting edge and looking very awesome on screen, but I don't think it's aged very well. And I was just thinking, what's another film that came out a few years around this that might have a different amount of holding up to today? And I was thinking T2. Like T2 still looks amazing. And it's just a few years after this. But I think that was part of Burton's aesthetic, was the kind of steampunk, but real things, like real physical things in there, and not so much of the computery stuff. Like T2 was all, the silvery, or, the morphing was like all computer stuff. But I think it holds up pretty well.
You think Batman holds up or T2 holds up?
T2 holds up far better. It looks well more contemporary than Batman does. Batman looks dated.
Yeah, you could put T2 next to a modern movie and it wouldn't look that bad in comparison, for sure.
Right.
Whereas Batman, you put Batman next to anything and it's looking pretty old.
Right. It does look like Brazil, or it looks like Dark City or something like that. And it feels like it's of that period. Definitely. All right. So Shaheen, these are fighting words. Let's get your take on the Google description and how two knuckleheads here have run our mouths about how this is dated.
Right. Well, the Google description does seem to be pretty accurate, especially compared to all the other films, especially compared to Batman v Superman. I think, well, what was that about? It was like, Batman has to do this or some shit like that. But yeah, I do agree. It does look a bit dated, but I think that's part of the charm of the film at this point. Is it is an old movie, and it is Burton's dark dystopian aesthetics, and that whole just gothic look. Like it's like a live action version of the same kind of world as Jack Skellington and The Corpse Bride. I definitely see that with all the different characters, the aesthetics, the type of town, all the smoke and stuff. Like it definitely feels like a completely different town from let's say The Dark Knight. That looked a lot more real, whereas this is like a half real, half dark fantasy sort of a town, which I actually really like.
Yeah, there's a lot of gothic kind of gargoyles and faces built into things, especially in Batman Returns, which I watched part of. You can see faces in the architecture all over the place in that one. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be meaningful in some way, but it really stood out to me. I didn't notice as much in Batman 89, but perhaps if I were to rewatch it again, maybe I would see that. But Shaheen, let's set the scene a little bit, because part of the initial take on this was that this was really dark. People were expecting something a lot lighter because, set the scene. The last time we see Batman and Joker on screen, it's Adam West and Cesar Romero. And surfing with sharks with which Fonzie later jumped and getting sprayed with anti-shark repellent while hanging from a helicopter. And then we've got the director of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and we've got Mr. Mom as Batman. I mean, this does not look like it's going to be a good thing. And I think that in reading, some of the initial reactions to the announcements of the film coming out, that people were concerned about this. And then when they saw it, they were concerned that it was really dark. But it actually turned out to kind of inspire comic book films to take that darker turn and have a little bit more depth to them than we've had before. I mean, before this was like shit like Flash Gordon and some of the,
Superman.
Chris Reeve, Supermans, which they weren't like super campy, not like the Batman movie series. But what do you think? I mean, what do you think going into this, what people were expecting and then versus what they got?
Well, the thing is, about 3 years before this came out is when the comic book of, you remember Dark Knight Returns? The Frank Miller old Batman story? That's when that came out, and that's pretty much the first really dark Batman story. And that kind of set the scene for this. A lot more people all the big Batman fans were kind of getting accustomed to the more darker stories, like in the late 80s. And yeah, I think I read somewhere on Twitter that a lot of people were very just pissed off that Michael Keaton was cast, which I think he did a great job. But yeah, I guess if he's not really established, and I think Batman is kind of what established him at that point. It kind of just took him real high. I mean,
yeah, I
guess some people would just be like, I don't want Beetlejuice to be Batman.
Yeah, I remember that vividly, that there are a lot of complaints that Keaton didn't have the physicality or the seriousness to pull off a Bruce Wayne. Kind of similar with Pattinson, currently being the new Batman. Like, what has he done? Like Twilight. It's like, well, okay.
He's done Good Time as well, and The Lighthouse.
But people mostly know him from Twilight.
Yeah, I only knew him from Twilight. I was like, I don't want a sparkly vampire Batman. What the fuck?
Yeah, Vampire Batman doesn't sound too good, but we'll see. I didn't think Affleck was going to be a good Batman, and I was right. Though I think Shaheen, you like him as Batman.
In Justice League, he was shit. But then again, that whole movie was shit. So
no argument here.
Yeah. We've already duked it out on that one, and then we also did do the Batman Returns or Dark Knight Returns with you a couple of months back. So we'll post all that on the show notes page, of course, lastnighters.com/112. Now there was something I was going to ask about. Oh yeah. So back to Michael Keaton. I think that he was an established actor, but he was known for comedy. And this kind of put him over the top into like being an actual star, but he didn't get paid very much for this movie in comparison to, say, a Jack Nicholson. But I guess because Burton had worked with Keaton a couple of times before, including Beetlejuice and then this, in Batman Returns, he made sure that he got Keaton again because people were like kind of iffy on whether it was going to be him coming back or not. They were considering other actors, and they made sure that Burton made sure that Keaton got paid like $10 or $11 million to come back. So he kind of got his payday a little bit later. It seemed like maybe a loyalty bonus or something like that. But in the scenes where he's the Bruce Wayne character, I buy it totally. When he's dressed up in the bat suit and he's kind of like sort of awkwardly jogging along. And trying to do the physicality stuff, it looks kind of ridiculous.
He can't move his neck. He's like,
yeah.
You see, there's a scene where he has to look up and he goes like,
yeah,
right.
That old Batman suit technology is really showing its age in this film. I know they've gotten better with it, right? But the first ones, they couldn't. It's just a big, what is it, like a foam vinyl
rubber thing,
yeah, it does. It's just a solid piece of material. You can't really do anything with it.
With with a lot of R&D, now he can move his neck.
So we've come a long way. But if you're a crime fighter out there having to look around at things, you probably want to be able to move your neck.
Yeah. Probably a positive.
So I didn't see a whole lot of Batman being a badass or being very sleuthy or detectively in this one. I didn't see a whole lot of concrete story. I didn't understand really why things were happening.
Uh-oh.
Mhm.
Daniel's got some plot criticisms here, people.
Well, yeah.
Well, the Joker, he's just a crazy man, right? So he can do whatever he wants.
Right, and he blames Batman.
It's this lazy screenwriters get out of jail free card.
Yeah, and he blames Batman for being having caused his
Taking his
deformity.
screen time. And also for taking his screen time. Because something about the Joker is he really wants to, like in the comics as well, he wants to get recognition and he wants people to remember him and get the attention from everyone. And when Batman's like on the front page of the newspapers and all the news reports are talking about Batman and not him, that kind of makes him angry. And so the whole reason he was having that big parade was to get everyone's attention away from Batman and onto him.
Right, he was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to give away millions of dollars. Everyone come down. And this was this the one where they were going to have the 200th anniversary and they were like bankrupt and they were like, I don't care if we don't have money. We're still going to have this celebration because we want to appear like we're in, good shape and all this stuff. So I guess he took that opportunity to get people down there or whatever. Now this is a scene where the Prince song just fell flat for me. It seemed very awkward. Like it wasn't. I know Prince is like a godlike, musician. People really love him. I never really got into him. The songs in this film didn't do it for me.
What? You didn't like the Bat Dance song?
The Bat Dance when they're doing the parade thing. Yeah, it just Jack Nicholson's trying to dance through this stuff, and it just doesn't have a hook to it. I mean, there's nothing to dance to. It just seems really weird.
It's definitely out of place. That's for sure. The Danny Elfman, I would say the soundtrack song theme fits the tone, but yeah, the Prince music doesn't necessarily fit the tone. I'm surprised. I don't know if it was like a studio decision or if this is a Burton decision, but it seems out of place. You're right. I mean, it's kind of when it is playing, he is going for that crazy wild atmosphere in the parade, but it is contrary to the rest of the event. At least it's when Joker's on screen. It's not like when Batman's like, coming down the street or something.
Right. Sure. And I guess
I'm not gonna lie, my brain just kind of filters that kind of awkward stuff just out. Like I see it and notice it, I'm like, yeah, okay, forget it. Back to the plot. Or like back to Batman coming down with a Batwing. So like, yeah, it's like I just didn't even realize about it. I only remembered it now that you mentioned it. Like otherwise, a lot of the scenes I just forget. They don't really mean that much. I didn't even remember there was a Prince song.
Yeah, that did the soundtrack. I mean,
yeah, it was a big deal back then.
Now, speaking of Elfman, of course, is well known now. He did the Simpsons theme, and of course, Batman, and multitudes of movies since then. But back when he was tabbed to do this, he was relatively unknown, he was an unknown quantity in some ways. So there was pushback on whether he was going to be able to do the theme music for this or not. And it, obviously he did a great job because it's iconic. I think that this is the Batman theme you think of when you're not thinking of the campy TV series. So this is the Batman theme now.
Well, yeah, it's very similar. Is it
Batman theme?
Is it? Do you know, Shaheen? Is it the exact same theme as the animated series, or is it just similar?
It's very, very similar.
Yeah,
like 95% similar. That one's a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, because that's the iconic Batman theme to me. Maybe I've probably watched more animated series than I have movies, and that, along with like Kevin Conroy's voice as Bruce Wayne.
This bad boy right here.
Yeah, that's the one.
The
right
Blu-ray.
there. The complete. There you go.
Been binging that as well.
Yes, that'll be our next episode.
The entire series?
I
No,
think
talking about the animated series, the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
But that was really well done. I'm sure that's a lot of people are
Mhm.
familiar with the animated series if they know Batman, if they grew up when we grew up, or even slightly afterwards. It's still popular to this day.
Even when I grew up, it was there. We got Batman Beyond as well, Justice League. A lot of good shit.
Yeah. DC's got a lot of good animated series stuff. I think superior to Marvel's stuff.
Marvel has animated stuff.
Yeah, they got some. Not a lot, but some. But it's just so forgettable. It's like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not as
Some
strong.
of the Spider-Mans are pretty good, like the old cartoons from like 90s and early 2000s. I watched a bunch of them as a kid.
Yeah, I remember watching some Spider-Man.
There's some 80s Spider-Man too. I remember those. Remember liking them.
Well, I remember the old 70s. Spider-Man.
Oh, that must be
whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size. Catches thieves just like flies. Look out.
So you actually remember the song. Nice.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I've watched that many times. Terrible animation. Terrible. The worst animation ever. Short little crappy stories.
Well, when was it made? Like 67 or something?
Yeah, it's way back then.
It's old. It's in the 60s, yeah.
Okay. I actually had one of the little Spider-Man like dolls and I mean, you could take the spider suit off. Not that I did this like purposefully to be weird, but
yeah,
it's like a Ken doll just with a spider head.
Oh, geez, you must have been disappointed.
Yeah, don't ask me how I know that Ken dolls like or anything like that. But let's go back to the parade thing just real quick because I wanted to make a point about how governments are willing to do deficit spending, blow the budgets no matter what, just for the appearance of doing something. And I just thought this would be a point that Robert, you could tee off on for a moment, and then we can pile on.
Well, sure. You're talking about government officials that are only there temporarily, right? So they're there to get in and get out. They're not really concerned too much with the long-term health of any given society. I mean, sure, they'll pay lip service, but they're basically in there to loot and move on because they're only going to be there for a few years. So what do they care? They don't have any long-term skin in the game in terms of the health of anything. Not that I would say government contributes to the health, it sucks away from it. But the sales pitch is that government helps regulate the society and that sort of thing. Another thing I wanted to talk about, thank you very much, because how did the Joker manage to get his products into the supply? With what, the FDA? Isn't the FDA protecting the citizens of Gotham? They must not have the FDA in the DC cinematic universe.
All right, let's not poke holes, Robert. The plot is a little bit flimsy.
What are you talking about? The FDA is going to protect those people from those products. Those tainted products,
get the right amount in the right different products, and so only certain combinations are going to make people sick and have the Smilex reaction.
It is a pretty smart, fiendish plan, though. You got to hand it to the Joker on this one. It's pretty good. You only mix certain products together, and then it has bad effects. Otherwise, it's like indistinguishable from the normal product.
Yeah. So I had a question. The news anchors, this is really kind of shown on, they look all done up and everything. And then that one lady dies. And then later on, you see the news anchors and they're all like disheveled and have like sores and whatnot on their faces. Is that because they're no longer using beauty products and hygiene products?
Yeah. I think that's the thing. They just stopped using any makeup.
So it's not like they were getting some minor reaction to some of the altered products. Yeah. They were just no longer using.
Yeah, that's.
There was nothing. There's nothing said about it, so I always assumed it was because they just stopped wearing makeup. It was just an exaggerated attempt to show that they're just not wearing any makeup right now. That's just the state of things.
Okay, all right. And I guess Batman does do some detective sleuthing by figuring out this combination, though we don't see him really working it out. There's not that Sherlock moment.
No, but we do know that Batman in this universe is a total perv. He's got all kinds of cameras all over his mansion, spying on all his guests, talking about whatever they're talking about.
All right, because this is when he can go back and play the conversation that Commissioner Gordon had with one of the guys to go to the chemical plant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that, Daniel? You're gonna record all your guests in your home. Feel totally cool with that?
I mean, we sort of touched on this a little bit back in the El Royale movie.
We mentioned it. It happens from time to time.
Yeah, and I think, it's your property. You can kind of do that, but also there's a reasonable expectation that you're not going to record everyone's every move, especially at that level of detail where you can get like everything they said, NSA style, like prism everything, and then I don't know.
That's a recurring theme of Batman movies, right? The Dark Knight. That's him making. He gets the power to spy on everybody in Gotham. In this movie, he's just doing it to people that come to his house.
Oh yeah. Maybe that in the Dark Knight is a callback to this a little bit, but on a broader scale. Maybe it's to address this because Alfred does bring it up in Dark Knight, and in this one, Alfred does the unthinkable. He brings a woman to the Bat Lair.
He's the worst. Alfred's just the worst. He cannot keep a secret. Just because he thinks Bruce is lonely, he's like, yeah, this whole secret thing, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and he's really pushing Bruce on this woman he had a one-night stand with. I mean,
yeah,
it seemed a little, he's a fast mover, that Alfred.
Come on, man. Batman's going to get some tail. It's what's going to happen. You can't be throwing all these women at him. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. If I was a guest at the Wayne Manor, even if it was like this swanky party, and I found out that there were just like cameras all over the place recording my every move, I'd feel a little bit violated. Clearly, he has the right to do whatever he wants with his property. I probably just wouldn't go back there. I wouldn't like sue him or anything.
Socially,
but yeah, it's like
it's
a
not
breach
legally
of
wrong. It's like a
etiquette.
social, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if you're gonna do this shit, I'm not gonna be a friend anymore. It's like that.
Yeah, and it's not like they were just surveillance cameras, like security-wise. Like, oh, if somebody breaks something or steals something, I want to be able to go back and see who did it.
It's got like telescopic mics and stuff, like zooming. People are talking about.
Yeah, this is like prying. In a private conversation. I mean, this is like A to B, and then here's C intercepting. So yeah, that feels a little beyond the pale. A little.
I mean, he's doing it in response to Alfred telling him that something's going on, but still, he's recording it the whole time just in case.
And I guess
he could go and perv on people.
In a way, if you think about it, he only does use it for like crime-related stuff. And since it's Batman, we know he actually only does use it for that, as opposed to the NSA, who knows it for God knows what.
Right.
He's not going to be selling your data or coming after you because you like avoided taxes or some shit. But he only looks through it in response to Gordon having to go. I don't know. Maybe he deletes everything after like a few days or like a week. How the hell is he going to like keep recording everything and storing it?
Can you imagine how many videotape cassettes he's got in that cave? Just loaded up.
The contraptions he'd be playing it on, Tim Burton-esque, like Rube Goldberg machines. Jack Skellington, Yeah. So another thing that stood out to me was how when he's flying in the Batwing, he's just kind of aimlessly flying around. For whatever reason, just doesn't seem to be a reason. And then he just happens to have this balloon catching hook thing because the Joker just happens to have these Macy's Day Parades with Smilex in them.
He's freaking Johnny on the spot Cub Scout, Boy Scout guy. He's coming prepared.
I'm glad he's prepared.
Yeah, prepared. Yes, shock spray, balloon catches. What's next?
And rehydrate.
Just not a Just not a movable neck. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
He'll get to that later.
And then we see the confrontation where the Batwing is flying down towards the Joker, misses him with these Gatling guns and rockets and everything.
Well,
Batman's got a freaking like target lock on him, He's not doing the Skywalker,
trench run
shot here.
Yeah.
He's shooting like a fucking stormtrooper. And then Joker just stands there because he's not afraid, because he's like, well, I know that he's not going to hit me with all this like advanced weaponry with targeted systems and shit. And he pulls out this super long pistol, fires one shot, takes him out, crashes.
Yeah, why did he build the Batmobile to withstand like 1,000,000 bullets, but the Batwing to withstand 0 bullets? I mean, that gun All that barrel does is improve his accuracy, which I don't even know because he was holding it back down at the handle. So it's still swabbling around. But it wasn't like a huge caliber weapon. But it's still, I mean, it's a Joker weapon. Who cares?
Yeah. But I thought that conversation was funny because then they do it later in Dark Knight again, where Heath Ledger is like egging him on, and Batman like does a, I don't know, tries to avoid killing him.
Adam.
Yeah. Just kind of e-brake slide or whatever, or crashes his is the bat bike he had in that one? I forget.
Yeah, the old bat cycle.
Pod.
Yeah, the pod. But so then Joker takes Vicky Vale up 900 feet of stairwell up some.
He's not even out of breath
for whatever reason. Like, what was Joker's plan here?
Well, he's doing a lot of CrossFit in order to get up those stairs and just be not even breathing hard.
But Vicky Vale is nothing to Batman as far as Joker knows. And Joker was giving away this money, trying to kill everyone with the Smilex. Batman foils the plot, gets the balloons out there with his balloon snipper. But shouldn't Joker, like, now he shot down the Batwing. Batman appears to be missing or dead. He's like hiding under some rubble. So why is Joker, what's he doing? Why does he just leave or go continue his plot? Why does he need to go up this thing taller than the Sears Tower to get a helicopter ride?
You need to stop thinking about this finale. You got to get all up off the writer's back about that. This can, it can't always make sense. All right. This is the Joker. He does what he wants.
You know what is? We've got to get the bats in the Belfry payoff. That's what we got to get. That line. That line's got to get into the film, so we got to get into a Belfry.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And Dancing with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight. All that good stuff.
Right.
Which the reason he took Vicky though was because Joker actually liked her.
Sure. Yeah. Because he had given up on Jerry Hall. Was that her name? The
who that was?
Alicia.
Yeah, Alicia, who was the Jack Palance's girl, who was cheating on him with Nicholson.
Yeah.
Why is Jack Nicholson Jack in like every movie? He's Jack.
He doesn't have to learn a new character name.
He's so good at like being an actor, but he can't not be called Jack. It's crazy.
The guy's been able to have a fantastic career, still getting to be called Jack in every movie. Leave him alone. He's a genius.
Hey, I'm just gonna be me and do my thing. I am actually crazy. Give me top billing
and all the money.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah,
that's something like I noticed watching Batman Return. Danny DeVito looks like him as Penguin is a completely new character. Like I can't imagine Danny DeVito being the Penguin, whereas Jack Nicholson, I can. Like, he's still being Jack Nicholson when he's Joker. Like, he's no different. He's still Jack Nicholson. He legit is just being himself.
I mean, he's doing his impression of himself and Cesar Romero, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. It's still really good, don't get me wrong, but it's just a fun little anecdote.
It's very much comic booky. It's very much over the top, either off or on. It's not so much nuanced like a Heath Ledger. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so you guys want to talk about the one issue of fuzzy morality that I saw?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then I want to. Sorry. After that, I want to ask you about Bob, Robert. But let's go
with killing Bob. Well, he was incompetent. Of course, Joker has to kill him. He didn't know about the Batwing, so he's got to die. Clearly. Anyway, so. The one issue of fuzzy morality that I saw is Batman driving into the Axis chemical plant, drops a bomb, and blows up the entire building with every single employee dead inside it. It sure seemed to me like, they're all Joker guys. And that plant was producing chemicals that were poisoning and killing people. But people were buying those products. Yeah, they were buying them under pretenses of fraud. But did it was it a proportionality issue, or was this entirely justified for him to just go in and then murder everybody in that building? Because when he breaks in, they're essentially defending their property by shooting ineffectually dumb little bullets at the Batmobile that aren't doing anything because it's not the Batwing. But then he just drops a bomb and then the whole place explodes. So I take some kind of issue. I mean, what about the secretary just doing her job? What about the janitors that are just cleaning up the trash? I kind of feel bad because he's like murdering a whole lot of people and pretty indiscriminately. So I don't know if Batman's the perfect moral character in this scene.
So you're making the Death Star under construction argument from Clerks.
Somewhat. Yeah, somewhat. Because it's gradations. Like, yeah, the guys that are working at the Axis plant are responsible in part for poisoning people. But does that mean that they all just need to be instantly judged, juried, and executed by Batman in this one scene? It seems a little bit much to me. I would want to be more nuanced in my justice. Not that I'm fully for some bureaucratic justice system either, but you know what I'm saying. What do you think it's totally clean in this scene? You're totally rooting for Batman the whole way through?
Not really. Like, I do understand. I think, look, the movie does imply that pretty much everyone in that building is a bad guy. Like, that's, yeah, sure. It's not the real world. Like, in the real world, yeah, there'd be janitors, secretaries, people forced to be there against their will, employees that have no idea what's going on, and some Joker thugs. But I think, for the sake of the scene and the movie and the kind of black and white morality of, like, superhero movies, especially back then, it would be fair to imply that pretty much everyone in that building is a bad guy. And Batman knows that. And I guess, yeah, sure, they're defending their property, but they just took over that building, Joker's gang. So it wasn't really theirs to begin with. And at the same time, they were doing something that was murdering a lot of people and killing a lot of people. So,
well, wait a minute, though, wasn't it? Wasn't the building owned by the Jack Palance character? And then when he kills Jack Palance, he takes over the whole positions of the gangs and whatnots?
Yeah, and it's illegally taken because he got it through murder. He just killed the guy and took it from him. So.
And everything's wrong with you, isn't it, Shaheen? Killing people, poisoning people. Is there no end to this list of things that are wrong?
I'm just keeping up the pretense. Just
all right.
Wait for the after show. Just agree and let's go. We'll get to that later on. Don't worry. Got a good plan.
Right, good. Because I got an evil chemical plant that I need to start feeling better about right now.
Axis Chemicals. Nice.
Well, wasn't
don't worry. We won't bomb it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Now, wasn't it like not necessarily poisoning people until Joker put them up to it? So sure, they already had this chemical plant, and yeah, it made chemicals, not necessarily for nefarious things. Perhaps it was some kind of a cover for their bad operation.
It was like a mob front, but they currently obviously had contracts to produce products for multiple brands that distributed all throughout Gotham City. So, yeah, I mean, you're talking like normal, just like regular chemists going to the job, thinking he's making shampoo. And then the Joker shows up and he's like, now you're making evil shampoo. Yeah. I don't think you can kill that guy.
Yeah, and to Shane's point, it seemed as if it was all militants in there at the time of Batman attacking it.
They only showed the militants, but come on.
Yeah, so perhaps like the good people actually left.
It's an implication that there weren't any good people. All the chemists working there were like part-time chemists, part-time militants. That's kind of the implication. That's the implication I've always got watching it, that when Joker takes over the place, it's all his gang and his thugs that run the place. They kick out all the, normal workers. Maybe they're scared that something will get out.
So they've seized the production here.
They have seized the means of production for sure.
And now they're doing population control.
So they're fighting the good fight, really. They're a bunch of environmentalists, really.
the real good guys, the real heroes.
Yeah, so perhaps this is a Tim Burton failing, but in watching the film, it didn't make sense to me why Batman was going here. But now, upon reflection, it's like, okay, he's discovered that the chemicals that are adulterating these products are coming from this one place, so he's going to go blow it up. Also thinking that Joker's there, I think, because he sees Joker.
Yeah, he sees the helicopter leaving.
Right. Yeah. So
he doesn't know everybody who's in there or isn't in there. He doesn't have omniscient knowledge about the secretary playing with her kid on the second floor. Yeah.
Yeah, this Batman's a bit nuts.
He's a bit of a murderer.
This is also a Batman who actually does kill people, because prior to this, he's known for not killing people, right? Like that's his
right.
thing.
And not using guns, but he's got machine guns on the Batmobile and the Batwing. Right.
So maybe that's another chalk in the column for it being dark, at least in the perception of people at the time, because the Batman coming into this, of course, was, the old one and the comic book who, other than in Batman Return or The Dark Knight Returns, and I think The Killing Joke came out right before this too, right? At least it's a graphic novel.
Yeah, I think in '89.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is like the leading edge of Batman actually killing people and going a little bit against canon. But Kane's involved with this. He's like he's given maybe a producer credit or created by, and he's like a consultant.
He's got that little cameo.
Yeah.
The picture, sketch. the bat sketch. Yeah. It's like there's in the corner it says Bob Kane on it, which that's probably not Bob Kane as an actor there, but of course, he gets this little appearance there. Of course, Bill Finger, he gets fucked over. There's no talk about Bill Finger, but that's all right.
Yeah. Batman v Superman was the first movie to formally recognize Bill Finger as a co-creator as well. So kudos to that.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's so weird to think that in '89, Bob Kane was still around, because I was a kid back then. So like, it seemed like, Batman's been around for 40 years. I'm sure whoever has been involved in the creation and making of this stuff is long gone, and now it's been another 30 years.
Yeah, I don't know when Bob Kane died. He would have been an old man.
Between 95 and 97, I think.
So the Val Kilmer movie, or the George Clooney movie, finally did him in?
98 is when he died.
I think it was between those. Okay, so it was after the Clooney one. Yeah, 90s.
Okay, yeah. Can we talk about?
If you look at the old Bob Kane and Bill Finger, like from 39 and 40, like before the comics code came in, Batman did kill. He always used to say like a fitting end for his kind, or like as a guy looking out the window, he jumps down, like smashes his neck with his foot, just kicks his neck and breaks it, and then he hangs someone from the Batwing, just from his neck, and he just said, "Oh, it's better off this way," or a fitting end for his kind. So he didn't go out of his way to murder everyone, but he did kill here and there, and until the comics code came in, and then no heroes killed ever, and all the bad guys who ever died. I think there was a rule, there was a law, that any hero any bad guy that dies has to die because of their own actions.
You see that a lot in old stuff for sure.
And then a lot of that stuff kind of just stuck, like with the not killing, and then just became part of the character's canon.
Okay, so old Batman is like Rorschach from Watchmen.
Yeah, probably a little less brutal, but yeah, more or less. From 39 and 40, I think a bit after that, like still early on in the Golden Age, or maybe early Silver Age, that's when the new rules came in. But like the very first few issues, when you see him in proper brutality.
The only problem I have with Batman being a killer, and I really don't, like I've mentioned this before, I don't have a problem with different directors having different takes of different characters, for sure. Do what you have a vision of. That's fine. I appreciate the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's a single guy with a single vision trying to tell this massively huge story and breaking up into different pieces with different people that share his vision. But if Batman's a killer, and he's just going to kill indiscriminately, or anytime he thinks he sees a bad guy, or if it really makes sense to kill this guy, then why doesn't he kill the Joker immediately? Why doesn't he kill any of his recurring big villain name guys immediately? Clearly,
I think Batman.
Clearly, Batman recognizes the Joker is an irredeemable character, constantly breaking out of Arkham, killing more people, endlessly. Why doesn't he kill the Joker if he's going to kill one of the Joker's thugs?
In this version, I think the way I think about it is this Batman doesn't go out with the intention to kill, but if like shit gets real, that's when he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just kill you. Like when someone's throwing him
kind
off,
of a thing.
yeah, and like when there's a build, then when there's like 20 people just shooting guns at him
in a building, he'll just drop the whole building down on him.
Yeah, he'll just or like if some guy's throwing him down like the cathedral, he'll just grab him
but
and
that's
throw
not
him
true
down.
at all, Shaheen. You know it. He could have had a better plan for the Axis chemical plant. He didn't have to go in with the he went in with the plan of blowing up that whole building because he does it right away. He could have gone in and done one of the, like, you remember that scene in Batman versus Superman where Martha Kent is being held hostage by that gang, and he just goes in and takes them all down. Batman just goes in and kicks everybody's ass, and is like, Martha's not dying tonight. I'm going to go in and clean everybody up. He could have done that to the Ace Chemical Plant. Clearly not in 1989 Batman when he can't turn his head. But you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I wouldn't have bought it with Michael Keaton, but I would buy it with Ben Affleck in that scene.
Yeah, he can't turn left. He's a Zoolander.
Fair enough to that. But at the same time, like you said, that he doesn't kill Joker but kills his thugs. He went in there thinking Joker's there as well. And the next time he's in, keep in mind, this is a Joker who's only really Joker for like a few weeks or a few days even. He's not. It's not like he goes to Arkham, then escapes, and Arkham again. He's like a gangster named Jack who falls in a vat of acid and becomes Joker, then raises some hell, then dies, and that's the end of Joker forever in that dimension, in that universe.
Right.
And after the initial fight, like when he finds out what Joker's doing with all the laughing things and all the chemicals, he goes in trying to get rid of him, goes in trying to kill him. And then the next time they confront each other is when he tries to gun him down with a Batwing, which extremely long range, boom.
Yeah.
Long barrel.
Batman with his scope couldn't quite pinpoint Joker in his giant purple bright suit. That's fine.
Yeah. There was a Star Trooper shooting there.
Movie magic.
Let's talk about the climax just a little bit more. So they're fighting in the Belfry. There's these various gang member dudes attacking Batman, and Batman is able to defeat them with varying degrees of success and comic relief. But I'm a little bit unsatisfied with how Keaton takes out Joker with the little wonderful toy that he has and the little, what is it called? Like a sling where he ties him to a gargoyle. And then apparently Nicholson's been doing the hand grippy strength stuff because with this bat rung with his,
he could do Ninja Warrior no problem. He'd be doing that grip strength test.
Yeah, and then he's got the gargoyle, however many hundreds of pounds that must weigh, and he's still able to hang on and rip the thing off of the frickin' building.
Dude, he's a monster. Nicholson's a beast. He was doing all kinds of finger strength exercises for the show.
Yeah. So Robert, what would you do in that situation? You got this thing strapped to your leg and you're hanging onto this helicopter. Would you let go of the helicopter because you're tethered to this heavy gargoyle?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to hurt a little, but you're not going to die.
You'd swing down and you'd probably brain yourself maybe, but at least you could make it so your hands, when you swing back and smack up against the building, you'd be okay. You'd probably hurt your hands a bit, but you'd be alive.
I'd be afraid of this gargoyle breaking though, like it actually did.
Yeah, only because
if it's a movie gargoyle, then yeah, absolutely.
It's only because of his super hand strength, which apparently starts to weaken and fail on him.
Well, he has to kill himself, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Well, kind of
his own doing, or he could have wriggled his way out of that a little bit differently.
Batman didn't technically kill him, right?
Yeah, technically.
Yeah, and why the helicopter guys, the helicopter henchmen didn't notice something was amiss. I don't know.
Lower the helicopter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
they're just retarded.
He hired
And,
them out of-
and when Batman and Vale slip, and then Batman tries to save them with this tether, and they stop
They
their
stop
fall.
suddenly.
Yeah, suddenly, like they'd be ripping limbs off of them doing that. I think in real life, like there was no give whatsoever.
Yeah, but they got those harnesses, underneath their
Have you
clothes. and stuff.
seen Amazing
everybody
Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, isn't that where Gwen Stacy dies at the end when he stops
That's
her?
the one. Yep.
Yep. mhm.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, but yeah, that's kind of how it would have happened in real life.
Yeah, it would have snapped your neck. Broken bones, at least. That kind of impact. Sudden stop. That's the whole point of the falling being bad. It's the sudden stop at the end.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of this goes back to Burton just kind of like having this aesthetic, not so much on the action, not so much on the chase scenes, like when the Batmobile's driving around, it's got the rockets.
More
It doesn't seem
stylized.
like it's moving that fast. It seems kind of moseying along. Just happens to be on fire.
Well, let's talk real quick about the Batmobile's self-driving technology, because this is 1989. This is pre-Uber. This is pre-Google cars.
Stop.
He says stop. Right, exactly.
Stop.
So he can't see the
How does he get it to
Batmobile.
move?
Right. So he's just like armored, or like, what is he, like armored? Okay, unarmor and come to me or whatever. Well, it just starts driving, right? And people are jumping out of the way of this thing. But then finally it gets to him and he has to tell it to stop. So
how does he know? How does he know? Like, how does it steer? How does Batmobile know where the road is? Does it just have like a homing device on Batman that it like it tracks? Okay, Batman's here, and I have to drive all the way there. And if that's the case, I mean, roads aren't just one straight line. It's like a lot of different, like, just roads. So
Hey, don't
wouldn't exist in
complicate
a
roads.
society.
Okay?
this is pre-GPS.
They
The
wouldn't exist.
Batmobile. Yeah. It could just
Should have
run over
been,
some
like,
old lady or some kid. I don't know. It seems like a health danger hazard. I don't think Batman should be doing
I think
this. How many innocent
should've
people
just
could
had
be in the way of that
Alfred.
Batmobile? Like every
They
time
should've
it like
just had
shows
Alfred
up
remote
and there's like
drive it.
12 dead people clung to the bumper. It's like
It's got a
oops.
cattle guard full of people.
Windshield's
it's got
on.
a
He should. I reckon for that part they should have just had Alfred remote drive it from the cave.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Little
Yeah,
steery,
and
little
that-
remote control thing.
That's a Toys R Us toy
Little
tie.
Batman arcade, Batman 89 arcade.
Yeah, the Batman RC car.
Yeah, perfect idea.
Penguin did it in Batman
Probably.
Returns in his little toy thing.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe that was one of the criticisms, and then they're like, "Oh, that's a good idea."
All right. So, Shaheen, do you want to touch on any of the sequels, Batman Returns, a little bit? I don't want to really talk about Batman and Robin at all because that was pretty bad.
Fair enough.
What?
You serious? Arnold's the best. I know. There was one thing else I wanted to touch about in this movie, and that's just the prevalence of corruption you can see. Like, especially in Batman Returns as well. Not so much in Batman Forever or Batman and Robin. They kind of took a big step away from the whole dark and like gritty shit. It became they made it a lot more camp. So it was nice to see, like especially in Batman Returns, like Christopher Walken and working with the mayor and trying to make Penguin mayor so he can have his own like power plant or whatever. And like, yeah, just and like Lieutenant Eckhart in this, the fat guy.
Why he wasn't? I guess they couldn't have killed. What's his name?
Gordon.
Bullock. Yeah,
Bullock.
I guess they couldn't have killed Bullock, but they could just kill some random fat cop guy.
Yeah. Thing is, I don't think we've never actually seen a film Bullock because we've seen fat police officers like in Batman Begins as well, but they're always bad guys. Thing is, Bullock's actually a good guy, which I'm glad they didn't make any of these guys Bullock because I really like Bullock. I think he's a cool guy, but yeah,
He's a great character in the
they're not
animated
even-
series for sure.
yeah, very entertaining. He's a bit of a dick, but a good dick.
Yeah, no, he's a lot of fun. He's a good foil for Batman for sure.
All
But
right.
yeah, corruption is definitely part of the Gotham City. It always has been. They've played it up. They always play it up like the mob has, you know, the cops in their back pocket and they just kind of run the town.
I mean, they do. It's just
they do. It's just called a different thing. So, yeah.
And something else I did notice, like this, like Batman and Batman Returns, the Burton ones, yeah, they were a lot more darker and grittier, and they dealt with corruption a lot more, whereas, and they felt more like, you know, Jack Skellington Corpse Bride film, whereas the Schumacher ones, like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, they felt like part of an opera set piece, like with all the different like flashy colors and like the nipples and like, remember that scene like in Batman and Robin where they have a big statue? Like they just have random giant statues of muscular men around Gotham City, which
I don't. I've blocked most of that movie out of my mind, so I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, Pound Me Too. I don't really remember much of that one, but
it's one of the movies you watch like to get drunk. It's like drink every time you cringe, and then you end up with liver failure. Mm-hmm. It's like Jack and Jill.
Yeah, I think if you were a young kid and you watched those movies, I think you would be much like people like the Batman or the Star Wars prequels. If you watch them when you're 5 or 6 years old, I think you can get past some of those stupider things. But if you are old enough, they just get cringeworthy and just hard to watch.
You know what I see though,
unless you're properly lubricated.
If you compare the Batman and Robin and what's the other one with Val Kilmer? Batman Forever.
Yep.
Those seem more similar to present day comic book films than the Burton ones. Like as far as legacy
like
goes,
MCU
stylized
Marvel movies.
Yeah, they seemed like a little bit precursor to the Marvel movies. Like the Marvel movies compare more similarly to those than these Burton ones.
Like tonally.
Yeah, like kind of kiddish, jokey.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too mature, really. And when they do have mature themes, it's kind of like a very watered down, abridged sort of thing. Like compare the politics of, let's say, Civil War to Batman v Superman. Like people say, oh, Civil War had lots of politics too. It just had Iron Man being a dick and joining the government, and Captain America saying no. And it was like, oh, you guys cause destruction, government needs to regulate you. That was pretty much all the political stuff. Whereas Batman v Superman had that as well, like with the court hearings for Superman, like what Superman should do, as well as like just what xenophobia a powerful alien might feel if he's like the only alien living on Earth, trying to come to acceptance with like, who is he? Like whether he's human or not.
That's all
I just felt like
Batman Returns with Penguin.
Yeah, Penguin.
Feeling like an outcast and like he wants to know who he is, what his humanity is, where he comes from.
Have you seen? You didn't see the whole thing. I'm going to give some spoilers. He already knows who he is. The whole point of coming out and pretending to find out who he is so he can access public birth records. So he can find all the kids, like all the firstborns of Gotham's wealthiest families, so he can kill them all
with rockets.
Yeah, because he says
strapped to penguins' backs.
Penguins, exactly. He's like, if he doesn't get to, you know, if he was an outcast by his parents, then all these kids need to be killed as well. It's like an angry form of revenge on society.
It also seems like it echoes some biblical stories, right? Like when Cobblepots are put in, they put the baby in the river. That's like the
Moses
in the river thing, and then killing all the firstborn. That was like
the of Egypt.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you guys knew that was Pee Wee Herman as the dad, right? In Batman Returns, Cobblepot.
Actually?
Yeah, that sounds right. I probably knew that at one point. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, because Burton, you know, he brought Pee Wee Herman and he brought Michael Keaton to Batman. It's like he's got his own traveling group of friends who.
He's like Adam Sandler. He always puts his friends in his movies.
Nothing wrong with that, as long as they do a good job.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Daniel, you haven't seen the Gem movie Where Adam Sandler that made a couple of people's
Uncut
best
Gems?
movies list. Yeah, Uncut Gems. We might need to see that at some point. Supposedly, it's really good.
Okay, I have not seen it, but
You
I'm
it's like
interested.
Adam Sandler in a good movie. What?
Well,
What's going on?
apparently,
What alternate
apparently-
dimension is this?
apparently, Adam Sandler's manager didn't want him to do it because it features Adam Sandler as a greedy Jew. And he's like, "Oh, you don't want to be playing a greedy Jew," which
Oh,
is like,
nice.
fair enough. But I don't know. But apparently, it's supposed to be really good. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Okay, I have a whole slate of movies that I have to watch just for the sake of watching them. But because we do a show about movies, I find watching more than the movie that we're gonna do, and sometimes even that is too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I still haven't finished Parasite. I started it and I'm almost done. I got like a half hour left. It's good, but I just haven't finished it.
Yeah, is it show worthy? I imagine it is, just from the description and how I saw a review on Gizmodo and they love it because it's all about wealth inequality and class and.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of stuff to talk about, not only from the movie but from the people's analysis of it. All the people that seem to think that class is this horrific thing and rich people are all the worst and poor people are all the best and whatever.
I don't mind movies that touch upon that stuff, like to show like, oh, some people live like this, some people live like that. Like, yeah, sure, but when they have that message of like, this is wrong and needs to be fixed by, like, let's say do this or do that, that's when the problem comes in, when it's like propagandized. But like movies about like lower class people and difficulties of living like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, yeah, there's real life struggles that will exist in every society ever.
Sure.
But when you say that, oh, all these rich people are bad and all these poor people are good, and now we need to get a fucking government to come and take from them, like, that's when it gets like, hey, fuck off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's the idea that you can only get rich by exploiting others. And that's just, we make fun of that on this show all the time, but it's just ridiculous.
Right. Another example is, of course, Jeff Bezos, who associated with Amazon, which has made my life better, made many millions of people's lives better. Cheaper products delivered far easier than the older methods. Well, the left, of course, hates him because he's worth $1 billion plus, $5 billion, 10 billion, whatever the number is, 60 billion,
like 100 and something billion or whatever. But yeah,
quadrillion billion. But
quadrillion.
It doesn't matter what the number is. What matters is the left hates him no matter what he does. He just dedicated $10 billion to fighting climate change. And the left response to that is, you're a hypocrite because of all the packaging you use. We hate you still. So there's no appeasing these people at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And he bought like a house, a mansion, like
in California,
in Hollywood, like the biggest mansion ever for a big chunk of money. And they're like, it was only 1/10 of 1% of what he's worth. Okay. Why is that bad?
Like, so would you rather not get it then? And like, do these? I think a lot of people think when they find out someone's net worth is like that many million or billion, they think they have that much money just either in cash or in the bank, just lying around. It's like, you know what assets are, right? You know what a business is. You know what revenue is. You know what reinvestment in your own business is. That probably doesn't have as much. You would never have as much money in your bank as is your assets, unless you sell everything.
Right. And if everyone decided that they hated Amazon and they wanted to stop using it tomorrow, he would be poor again. But he provides a great service. His wealth is tied up with the power of his company and the level to which everybody loves it and wants to use it.
Yeah. Now tie this back into Batman just real quick. There was a line in here I wrote down that it says, the rich can afford to be odd. And I forget who says it in the original one.
Knox. The reporter.
The reporter guy. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. He had some pretty hot takes that were pretty SJW-y. And he had a hot one for...
he seemed to be like the voice of the author. It seemed to be the screenwriter's voice in a lot of his comments.
And he was one of those swoopers. Like, he was always trying to like hit on Vicky Vale, but she wasn't interested and she kept putting him off. And he was talking shit about Bruce Wayne. Trying to like wedge in there. Didn't work.
Yeah.
Sorry,
buddy. Trying to cock block Bruce. That's the way it goes.
But anyway, we should probably wind this down. We've been going for the length of the show already. So any final comments before we get into summary and review? And then we'll get into some Kathleen Turner Overdrive, which is bonus content available for our Patreon supporters at lastnight.com/Patreon. Send us some dollars and we'll give you pre-show and post-show bonus content and other such goodies.
I just wanted to mention that Selena Kyle just hashtag Selena Kyle didn't kill herself. You know, when he pushes her down the window? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Much like Jeffrey Epstein.
Indeed.
Exactly. And also, one other thing. Am I the only one who finds it weird how, like, Selena Kyle is just some secretary or executive assistant or whatever, and then she goes from that, falls down a window, goes insane, makes a cat suit out of leather, and now goes around beating the shit out of people, like, so easily. Like, I guess she has the claws now, but wouldn't make it that much easier to just walk around beating people up.
She is a woman, Shaheen. How dare you? Questioning her abilities? Just bigotry and sexism over here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, like, when I was watching the Batman fight her, like, you see Batman's, like, kind of, like, whoa, like, you hit a woman, it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, Batman's like, stop hiding that bird. Like, come on, Batman. He's a criminal. There's lots of...
It's one of the benefits of the Batsuit.
That was a clever ruse on her part, you know? Used his chivalry against him.
Yeah, you and your dumb chivalry.
Yeah.
Punch her in the face.
He did punch her in the face.
Yeah, a couple times. Pump her in the baby maker.
He tried to fucking kill her. He, like, pushed her off. If she didn't fall in that truck, she'd be dead.
Hey, and the kitty litter? Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into final summary review on this one.
If you reject Batman, he just pushes you off a building. So don't reject Michael Keaton. Like a nut.
He will kill you.
That's why Vicky Vale's not in Batman Returns. She got pushed off a building too.
You know, I did appreciate that they at least made reference to her in Batman Returns, and he just basically said, "Oh, it didn't work out." I mean, I can't imagine that a one-night stand didn't work out, but you know.
Yeah.
Damn it, Alfred.
Alfred's a moron.
Yep. Alfred was wrong. Alfred was wrong. That could be a hashtag. All right, Robert, you want to kick us off with a summary review?
Maybe I will, Daniel. So you want me to review this movie and tell you about my final take is?
Yeah, Batman 89. And if you give it an 8.9 score, I'm going to disown you.
There's no way in hell this movie is that good. I mean, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the idea, but this movie isn't even a 7. So maybe back in the day it was, but with my superhero colored glasses on, it just keeps falling every time something new and better comes out. I mean, not that the current crop of movies are super fantastic, expialidocious, but this movie, you know, at the time it was so good. Of course, I was only 13, but everything about it was really fantastic because we didn't expect, you know, this level of quality for a comic book character. I mean, today we expect $1 billion movies, massive blockbusters, but there was once upon a time when comic book movies were a joke. They were just stupid. Like the original Fantastic Four movie was just hilarious. The original Captain America movie, which they wouldn't even show, it's just a guy on a motorcycle just riding around beating people up. These movies, such little money and effort and talent was put into these things that it's a miracle that we're where we are today. Maybe it takes like a guy like Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. to make Iron Man and kind of kickstart everything. But back in the day, we were kind of starved for good comic book movies, and this was one of the best of the bunch, especially with the Schumacher movies coming afterwards. It was like, oh yeah, no, the Burton ones, these are way better. And Keaton is actually a damn good Bruce Wayne, and he's a decent Batman, but he's a damn good Bruce Wayne. So he's definitely preferred to Clooney, just obviously. But on its own merits, it's so I just can't I can't judge this on its own merits. It's a part of a universe, and it's a part of the world we live in. So on a sliding scale of comic book movies, this just keeps falling down the list of the best ones, especially after, getting such great performances from all the people that we've had, and probably, hopefully, with Pattinson going forward. I mean, I don't know who the villains are going to be in that new movie, but hopefully somebody good, of course. So I'm going to have to give this a 6.9. 6.9. It's not quite a 7. And if you ask me to watch this movie again in 10 years, it's probably going to be even lower. But it's still a positive movie, still what it is. It's got a certain charm, certain aesthetic to it that is unique to, a Burton film. And if you really like Burton and his vision of how to tell a story, then I think you'll really enjoy this. But it has definitely showed its age. Although Keaton still is strong, for sure. And Nicholson's performance is still decent, but it's nothing you're going to find a whole lot of nuance in. That I don't think he really plays up a very humanized character. I think he plays a comic book character. Whereas today's actors are really approaching it more from a fully fleshed out, realized human character that just happens to have like these superpowers, as opposed to a two-dimensional comic book wacky character. So 6.9, Daniel.
All right, 6.9. That's pretty good. I think that you're right. It's going to probably lose another point per decade. So in 10 years, if we are still doing this when we're even older men than we are now, it might be a 5.9. But I too remember this as a child watching this. I went to the movie theater with my cousins. My uncle paid for us all to go, and it blew us away at the time. And I think due to the dearth of good comic book movies back at that period, I mean, Superman's were pretty good. But other than that, yeah, most of it was just a crap fest. And having this movie and having it be so dark, I think it did usher in a new era. But perhaps it also killed that era with the subsequent Batman and Robin, with the Schwarzenegger and Clooney and the bat nipples. And perhaps you're right that Iron Man was what really brought it back to being mainstream fare. But for the most part, this was iconic. It also was one of the big consumer tie-ins. You saw the bat symbol everywhere, like everywhere. Products, TV shows, commercials, every restaurant, all the bat toys. It was probably the biggest thing in merchandising since Star Wars. And so culturally, I think it has a pretty big role to play, though it does get dated by the moment. I mean, it really looks old. It looks of the period. It's definitely got that Burton-esque feel to it. The music from Elfman is great, and the music from Prince is out of place. So much so that our Batman man just ignores it. But I'm going to go lower than a 6.9. I'm going to go with a 6 on this. It goes down as a historical moment as far as film, but I don't think it's a great movie. But I think it's an important movie, and it did lead a resurgence back into this realm and bringing out this type of this genre back to the fore.
Yeah, it's a better milestone movie than a movie itself. I would agree with that for sure.
Like whatever memories you have of it, keep those, cherish them.
Don't go back.
You can never go back. All right, Shaheen, let's go to you for your takedown and your score.
All right. Well, I also watched this movie when I was a kid as well, like probably like 11, 12-ish, which does seem pretty old. It came out so long before, but like I only really got into Batman at like preteen years. I enjoy the movie. I love Tim Burton's, gothic takes on things, and his animated films as well as this. So when I think of it as a Tim Burton movie, not as just a normal movie, like I find it more enjoyable. And there's just something about Michael Keaton's like Bruce Wayne and Batman that I just like the personality of. And it's just, I guess classic's the word I'm really looking for. It's classic, but in a unique way. Like in a unique way as in it gave Joker an actual name and backstory, which usually in DC like comics and like Dark Knight and stuff is not canon. Like we don't know what his past is. They made he also changed Penguin, like made him Catwoman as well. So instead of Catwoman being some rich thief, she just becomes a crazy secretary who's trying to kill her boss. And Penguin is just like a abandoned like freak show, whereas he's meant to be like deformed still, but part of a wealthy crime family. So he did change some things around, but it still has that classic feel to it. It's the closest I'd say movie we get to a classic, like out of the comics Batman take. Like Dark Knight features a far more realistic take on characters. I guess either this or the early DCEU would have been the most like based off the comics ish type of thing. I enjoyed the plot as well. It wasn't that hard and it wasn't very philosophical. Like you can just watch it once and pretty much get everything. Don't need to watch again or analyze the plot after you're done. Don't need a whole mind map. Honestly, I'd say like I can see that it's dated, but I like to judge it for what it was when it came out. So I reckon I'd give it probably a 7.5. Surprise, surprise, I'm a Batman guy, going to rate it fairly highly. But yeah, say 7.5.
All right, so almost the black and gold if we go way back in our historical records of how we used to rate things around here. So Shaheen, thank you for bringing this one up. Thank you for being our Batman guy. We do enjoy having you on. And of course, this was a movie that kind of kicked it all off. It brought us Dark Knight. It brought us Heath Ledger. It brought us even Joker. So it brought us a lot of really great content and great performances since. And so for that, I think in the historical context, this is an important film for the genre. And I am glad they got made. So
yeah, without the massive runaway success of this film, we wouldn't have had, for better or for worse, those movies in the 90s, but then also probably what we enjoy today, if you would enjoy the movies. And I think most people do.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a stepping stone. So Shaheen, we'd love to have you back again in the future. I'm sure there's other Batman stories that we can go over with you or anything else in the DCU or elsewhere. Because you've always got something interesting to say and a good take, and we enjoy talking with you. So we'll, of course, have all of your previous appearances on our show notes page at lastnighters.com/112 and links to your Twitter and also some of your articles on some websites that we know you write for. So we'll have all that out there. And Robert, where can people get all those wonderful toys that we offer for good things that they do for us?
I believe it's lastnighters.com/Patreon. Is that it, Daniel? You can also go to Trepster.com, buy some t-shirts. You could go subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do any number of things. You could join our Facebook group, the Actual Anarchy Cadre. You can do all those things and many more.
That's a bonus for Patreon people. Oh, and one thing, I keep meaning to mention this on our shows, because we made a switch probably 2 months ago now to where now our YouTubes are not just the thumbnail art the whole time with audio. Now it's us, our heads, our faces, talking, our guests, everything. It's live action. So if you're only a listener of the show audioly, make note of this change and you can subscribe on YouTube and watch us. You can see what we look like. You can put a face to the voices that are grating and bothering you and, ruining your life.
Listen to the current all the time. And it sounds like two guys agreeing with each other all the time. Well, there actually are two of us, and you can actually, this is the kind of is evidence of that.
Right. Well, now three, because we've got our guests. We usually do have a guest. We did go through a phase of no guests for a while because I don't know, it was some ill.
Everyone goes through phases, Daniel. It's just part of life.
Yeah. So much like the Batman series, the film series has gone through many phases. But
was there a Schumacher phase?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Are we going to have a nipple phase? We might. Really prominently feature those nipples.
Yeah, we'll do it right here.
I'll definitely come in for that.
All right.
I'll be in for that.
All right. Maybe Pattinson will have some nipples. We'll see. But
the new image has been leaked of him in the suit. He looks different for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to check that out. Maybe they'll release the Snyder cut at some point. We'll see some
Hopefully.
Affleck bat nipples. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, this has been our episode on Batman 89, a little bit on Batman Returns. This can be found on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction, and also at lastnighters.com/112. Our guest has been Shaheen, and we'll be back next week talking about Contagion, which is a worldwide pandemic that just spreads like wildfire, and the response to that. This might be somewhat relevant due to the scare that's going on with the coronavirus, and we're going to have Mr. and Mrs. Raylene Lightheart on for that discussion next week. Catch it next week, pun intended. Any final words for our audience, Robert? Before I do any more
stay
dad
safe, don't get sick, live, stay inside, wear those little masks, and live to listen to another episode. Don't be a hero. Don't be a Batman going out there and catching all the coronaviruses, having sex with the random Vicky Vales.
Blowing up access
unless it's
chemicals.
worth it. You could, yeah. I mean, it's maybe it's worth it. I mean, she's smoking hot.
Just don't let Alfred bring her into the cave.
Just don't tell Alfred about her. Really, just
Yeah, Alfred, you're fired. All right, good night, everyone. Good night from last night. All right, so we're going to continue the transmission for a bit longer on the Actual Anarchy podcast before we actually do get into the Patreon bonus content. I was going to save my question of where does he get all those wonderful toys for now, or Robert, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Which I don't even know what it means. But
that's to say something you say before you kill a guy.
Yeah, it's just a thing to say, and of course that's the tell or the tip off to Wayne that it was Joker or Jack who killed his parents, but that's not canon. And I guess a little bit of the story behind that is Burton added that to the film because I guess there was a writer strike going on at the time, and they were changing it from whoever the actual guy who killed him. And Shaheen, I know you know who the name of that guy was, who in the comic books killed the Waynes.
No,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Oh, really?
Sure,
Is it not canon?
Chill, yeah. It's in the comic books. So there's a guy that kills him named Joe Chill, which is sometimes caused, sometimes not. But in the proper in the Burton verse, then yeah, it is Jack Napier or Joker who kills his parent.
Right, and so that's a bit of a departure from comic, but also at the same time, I mean, a lot of what's going on in Batman 89 is a bit of a departure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I guess you can kind of give him a pass on that, right? With that change, because he did change a bunch of other stuff.
I mean, it's an adaptational change, which I don't mind. I don't want everything to be like a spitting image of the comics. You just read the comics instead. It's good for them to have some sort of original takes.
Okay, all right. So on some of the previous episodes, we had us rank our performances by various Jokers. Do either of you have any changes in your opinion of that rank order from last time after watching Batman 89 again and getting a refresh on Nicholson's performance? Robert, go.
No, it is exactly as I remembered it. He didn't surprise me. He didn't disappoint me. It was just, yeah, this is what it was. There's just no nuance to the character. I mean, if you want a guy who's serious and then he laughs, and he's serious, then he laughs, then sure, I guess he's okay. But he doesn't climb up on my list. And now, obviously, I think Jack Nicholson's a great actor, and if you give him more meat, he'll digest it and he'll choose some scenery. But you know, this is they were working from a script that hadn't been written yet in terms of what a possible, comic book movie could be. These were the guys that were innovating at the time and kind of creating what's possible. looking at this roadmap of what had already been done before. I mean, they had Chris Reeves Superman, basically what they're working off of. Like, we're going to obviously not go this bright and bubbly guy, but they didn't have this depth and breadth of material to look at and say, this is what we could do. Now, what it is, it's fine. I don't know. He's okay, but no, he's not the best that ever was. At the time, he probably was. Is either him or Romero, right? But now it's just been so much better.
Yeah. So he was a 4 for you, I think, prior, because you had Ledger and Phoenix like basically tied for 1, and then you had Hamill, and then Nicholson.
Yeah, and Hamill's obviously just for the voice, but you can't go wrong. I mean, he's done not only the animated series but also the video games.
Yeah, and a few of the films, the animated films.
Right.
Yeah. Shaheen, does a refresh on your Nicholson viewing of Joker change anything for you, or are you pretty much where you were?
I'm still where I am, although I like his performance a lot. It reminded me of I'm like, okay, it is right that it doesn't have that much nuance to it as compared to, let's say, Ledger or especially Phoenix. But I guess in that weird Burton-esque world of black and white, it kind of is supposed to be like the comic booky. So I don't have any problems with it. So I still keep it where it is.
Yeah, okay. I think he was giving Burton what Burton was asking for, like this kind of 2-dimensional, wacky. I don't know, wacky, but you know what I mean, like just like cardboard cutout of a comic book villain
on his own terms and on his own shooting schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of
funny
awesome.
Thing is,
he'd run his own demands there.
These days, like comic book characters and just people, just bad guys and heroes in comic books. Like you said, like back then they used to be just like comic bookies. Like these days, comic book villains, like rarely you'll find a 2-dimensional one. Like almost everyone has a backstory or nuance to it in modern comics.
Yeah, like why does Thanos work so well as a villain? Because we understand his motivation. Like when a villain is just evil for the sake of being evil, which is just like the laziest of writing, you really can't oppose like the guy philosophically. You're just like, well, this is just like some sort of mad dog. And then there's all other kinds of problems with it. Like you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then something that removes the audience from the plot and getting invested in the plot, all kinds of problems. But when we understand the villain's motivation, we can kind of see ourselves in that person, even if we disagree with the way they're solving the problem. At least we could recognize that they see a problem and they're trying to solve it, even through imperfect means. It makes it much
humanizes them.
Now, is Joker not like the exception to that, because he is chaos, especially the Ledger Joker?
Yes.
Well, he says he is, but that's just his. That's his marketing.
That's what the Joker movie does as well. Like it's very nuanced, and it's only until the very end where he just becomes pure evil. Like he does have a reason, he's humanized, and he wants to fix up his life and everything throughout the movie. But it's only at the very end where he's like, "Fuck this shit! I'm just gonna be I'm just gonna be an evil guy." Just gets driven to that. Another exception to that, like to just the evil character who's just evil. When you have a character who's so powerful that like just petty things about like let's like interdimensional characters, like someone who lives in the 4th dimension, who this whole universe is like a pebble for him, doesn't care about it, and all he wants is complete domination, control over everything. Like someone like Darkseid, like that would work for someone as powerful as that. But just to get some random, let's say, thug who's like, I'm evil because fuck the good guys.
Yeah.
Like, definitely applies to that. But, like, having someone be bad for the sake of being bad because that's who they are works either in Joker's case or in someone ultra powerful like Darkseid.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. All right. Well, I was going to save another question for this, but we are already a little bit too long, but I guess I'll make it quick. Go to you, Robert, first. Selena Kyle or Vicky Vale?
As a girlfriend for Batman? Well, there's got to be. I mean, there's some seriously tantalizing aspects to Selena Kyle. I mean, that damaged goods kind of like, she's going to be incredible in the sack. You just know she's going to blow your doors off. That's just going to be some incredible sex. Vicky Vale, if you want a little bit more vanilla, someone you can take home to mom, but he doesn't have a mom. So, all bets are off.
Oh, the problem solved.
Exactly. He's got Alfred. Who cares? You can bring home anybody for Alfred. He's going to do his job anyway, regardless. So it's really just
let him into the Batman.
I think Selena Kyle historically has fit better for Batman. I mean, not only is she like a counterpart to him, like they're both a match for each other physically, psychotically, and she's that damaged goods piece of tail that man, she'll have no problems getting the old soldier to stand to attention, let me tell you.
Wow. Okay. Normally I would have saved this kind of level of content for our Patreon bonus content called Kathleen Turner Overdrive, but you get a little taste, everyone, here.
But then you also have to deal with the crazy. I mean, it's not all rainbows from roses, so you do have to like keep her at a certain distance. You're probably not marrying Selena Kyle and wedding her to the Wayne fortune. Probably not.
Okay. All right. Shaheen, your take, and then we'll say goodnight.
Actually, do you want to leave my take for Kathleen Turner Overdrive?
Oh, that's going to be even spicier.
All right, we're going to spice it up on Kathleen Turner Overdrive, available for our Patreon supporters. This has been episode 169 for Batman 89. Our guest has been Shaheen. We'll have show notes and more at actualanarchy.com/169 with all of his prior appearances, most of them related to Batman and DCEU. We'll have him back again in the near future, and we will have Contagion catch it with us next week, and we will say maximum freedom, everyone. Have a good night.
Contagion.
CHIPMUNK. We're the chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.